Joining me right now is the Senate Budget Committee member, North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator, thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate your time today. First off, the airline help relief. Tell me how you see it and whether or not this is going to be enough to keep demand coming back for the airline sector while we are in a shutdown.
Well, Maria, good morning. And I would say with regard to the airline industry, demand is not going to come back until we fix this virus, until we figure out what's wrong and reopen the economy. The goal really of the assistance is to make sure there's an airline industry to meet the demand when it does come back. And that's really true of the entire CARES package and whatever assistance the federal government can provide as a safety net and a bridge to the other side of this awful pandemic.
Senator, you recently led a call with other lawmakers, speaking with Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman. I spoke with him this morning. This obviously concerning the oil war between Russia and Saudi Arabia over the past month, which hurt the shale producers in the U.S., including your state of North Dakota. Here's what the prince told me about the shale producers when I spoke with him this morning. Were you looking to put the shale industry out of business, Your Highness?
Never. I have friends, I have pals. They are part of. We have a good relationship with them. I was in public in December many times saying we like them. We want to prosper with them.
Yeah, well, Senator, they may like each other, but this has definitely created competition for Saudi Arabia and Russia. And already we saw one bankruptcy from the shale sector. How bad is this going to get with prices where they are, Senator?
Well, I think if prices remain where they are, and it certainly appears there will be for the short run and maybe for the the immediate run, because obviously there's so much supply out there right now, due in large part to the actions of Saudi Arabia and Russia, which is why you saw such a strong response from many senators and others from oil-producing states. I would like to think we would have found a floor as a result of the deal that was struck last week that was brokered by President Trump and our Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette. But I will tell you that I worry that there's still more downside to come. So again, similar to the airline industry, we have an oil and gas industry that we do not want to lose. I think it was the goal of the Saudis and the Russians to compete with the shale industry. We will outlast them. It'll maybe be more consolidated, but we're trying to keep it all together so that, again, on the other side of this, when the demand does come back, such as the airline industry, and we need to produce more jet fuel, we'll be in a position to do that and not be dependent. Once again, another supply chain, a very critical supply chain that's dependent on other countries. We need to avoid that.
Yeah. Very, very critical. Stephen Mnuchin on this program said that the airlines are being looked at as national security right now. I would argue the oil companies are probably national security as well. Steve Forbes, jump in here.
Senator Steve Forbes here. In terms of a political issue, there's worry that the independents are going to be crushed in this downturn. We're going to have happen what happened in the 1980s. The majors are going to come in and scoop up these assets on the cheap. There seems to be a dichotomy between the big ones and the independent companies. What can be done to keep the independents alive, not have them scooped up at bargain prices and put out of business, not because of anything they did, but because of, circumstance?
Well, Steve, thanks for that, because I think you hit the nail on the head. We can view this as sort of American oil versus everybody else's oil, but you're exactly right. And especially in places like North Dakota, where it's the smaller independents that have been the entrepreneurs that have discovered and are producing these jobs. And it's, by the way, the entire supply chain is made up of smaller companies. And these are highly leveraged companies. They don't have a lot of cash. I think one of the things that the federal government needs to do is, through the CARES Act and through those credit facilities that are part of the Treasury/Federal Reserve, leverage program, is that we need to make sure that those funds are available for some restructuring, things that will help the cash flow, if you will, of some of these smaller companies and these independents, so they don't get scooped up. Because at the end of the day, the companies, the big multinationals, and we love them, don't get me wrong, they're very vertically integrated, Steve, and so they control all ends of the supply chain, the value chain, and they can either make money or lose money on high or low prices. So I think we're best served as a country with a number of smaller companies as opposed to the consolidation to just a few big ones.
So let's stay with Steve Forbes for a moment, Senator, because I want to get your take on this question as well. But Steve is a member of the task force for the president in terms of reopening the economy. So, Steve, talk to us about what you're looking at in terms of the most important metrics, how you would look to reopen the economy, and what would be realistic on a time frame, Steve Forbes.
I think it's going to have to be done in a matter of weeks, and this is where testing, like a saliva test, is going to be absolutely crucial to do it in a way where you don't get a resurgence, as happened in Singapore, where they had to shut down the economy again because it came roaring back for a variety of reasons. But in terms of doing the best thing for the economy right now, one of the things I'm going to be pushing is a suspension of the payroll tax for 1 year. That lowers the cost of labor for employers and also gives, say, a $40,000 worker an annual raise of $3,000. That would be cheap. They could do it right away. Now, that would be across the board and keep the politics out, which, unfortunately, some members of Congress, as we've discussed, want social programs involved in these rescue packages, which is not the place to do it.
Yep. Senator, would that fly? And are you expecting a fourth package? We spoke with your colleague yesterday, Lindsey Graham, and he is up in arms about the paycheck program, says that it's not working. And are you going to be on that call this morning at 10:30 a.m. with the Labor Secretary to discuss what's next in terms of relief?
Sure, but I would say I agree to some degree with Senator Graham, but one of the things about the Paycheck Protection Program is it's worked well enough that we're almost out of money already. It's wildly popular. There were some glitches in the early going, but I have to hand it to Secretary Mnuchin. He forced the issue quickly because he knew the money had to get out. But to Steve Forbes' point, and Steve, I think you're exactly right, a payroll tax holiday provides instant liquidity both to the employer and to the employees. And it's easy to administer. You just simply stop doing something that the IRS has been doing on a regular basis, obviously, for decades. So to me, the mechanics of that, as well as the instant liquidity, make all of the sense in the world, and I think would have a positive impact right away.
And do you think we'll see a fourth package?
I think we probably will, Maria, but I'm not anxious to get at one right away. I mean, remember, we just appropriated $2.2 trillion. Yeah, exactly. And I'm anxious, frankly, to see how the leverage program works with the additional $4 trillion from the Federal Reserve. That's just getting kicked off. That's just starting to be implemented.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're talking about, what, $7.5 trillion in stimulus, whether it's the central bank or the government, 35% of the GDP. Let's see how that works. Senator, It's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much, sir.